Hey bookworms, and welcome back to the Book Nook podcast. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into a book that's coming out soon, and it's already got people talking. Stop Lying to Yourself, 101 Hard Truths to Help You Change Your Life by Simon Gilham.
It really is fascinating how this book is resonating with people before it's even officially released on January 21st, 2025. The near 4-star rating on Waterstones with almost 90 ratings and a bunch of reviews suggests it's really hitting home with people.
It definitely caught my eye. The reviews are highlighting all those little lies that we tell ourselves. I'm really curious to see how Gilham tackles these hard truths and how he offers practical steps for positive change, for actually making changes in our lives.
Yeah, well, one thing that stands out from all the buzz in a Medium article that I read that summarized the book's core ideas is Gilham's emphasis on confronting self-deception. Like, he really doesn't shy away from calling out those common pitfalls, like rationalizing a partner's bad behavior or maybe accepting a friend's constant letdowns, things like that.
Yeah, it's so easy to just brush those things aside. But is that what's holding us back from real growth and happiness?
Gilham seems to think so. He argues that avoiding those uncomfortable truths is essentially lying to ourselves, and that's hindering our potential for authentic living. What's interesting is that he doesn't just focus on the negative, he emphasizes the importance of understanding our values, our beliefs, our strengths, and our weaknesses.
So it's about self-awareness, taking a deep look inward.
Yeah.
But how do we actually translate that self-reflection into change?
That's where the concept of accountability comes in. Gilham encourages us to shift from a blame mindset to one of ownership. So instead of saying, it's not my fault, he suggests asking ourselves, what can I control in this situation?
Right. So for example, let's think about the example from the book about financial struggles. It's tempting to blame external factors like low income or high living costs.
Absolutely. But Gilham argues that true accountability requires examining our spending habits, our financial literacy, our efforts to increase our income. It's about taking control of our finances rather than feeling like we're victims of circumstance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes me think about those situations where we might avoid conflict to maintain peace, especially in relationships. Is that something Gilham addresses?
He does, and his perspective is really interesting. While avoiding conflict can seem like the easiest path, Gilham suggests that it can actually lead to resentment and erode trust. Unspoken issues often don't just disappear. They can fester and damage the relationship over time.
Before we continue exploring those relationship dynamics, let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Stop Lying to Yourself, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a review. We love hearing your thoughts. Now back to Gilham's insights on relationships. He mentioned something about cultural influences, right?
Yes. He points out that societal expectations can sometimes pressure individuals to remain in relationships, even if they're unhappy. This makes honest communication even more crucial for building healthy and authentic connections.
That makes a lot of sense. Honesty and open communication are key in any relationship, but even more so when external pressures are involved. So we've covered honesty, self-awareness, and accountability, but change can be really daunting. What about those moments when fear holds us back?
Gilham actually dedicates a good chunk of the book to addressing fear. He argues that fear is often a major obstacle that prevents us from reaching our full potential.
That's so true. Fear can be paralyzing. It can stop us from pursuing our dreams, from taking risks, or even just making those changes we need to make.
But Gilham doesn't say we should try to become fearless. Instead, he suggests acknowledging our fears, understanding where they come from, and then choosing to move forward in spite of them.
So it's not about eliminating fear completely, but more like developing the courage to act even though we're afraid.
Exactly. He gives a really good example of someone who wants to start a business, but they're just crippled by this fear of failing. Instead of giving in to that fear, Gilham says they should try to find support from mentors, take calculated risks, and realize that setbacks are just a natural part of starting a business.
So it's about embracing the challenge and understanding that growth often happens outside of our comfort zones. This reminds me of something else he talks about, the importance of mental well-being.
Definitely, Gilham really stresses that prioritizing our mental health is crucial for our overall well-being. And he reminds us that neglecting our mental health can have a negative impact on every part of our lives.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If we're not taking care of ourselves mentally and emotionally, it's hard to show up fully in other areas.
He also tackles the stigma that's often attached to mental health, encouraging people to seek professional help when they need it. There's no shame in asking for help and guidance when you're dealing with life's challenges.
Speaking of support, have you found yourself connecting with any particular parts of the book? What resonates most with you?
One of the most compelling parts for me is his exploration of gratitude. He really highlights the power of gratitude and how it can change your life. He says that when we shift our focus from what we're lacking to what we already have, it can significantly impact our happiness and our overall outlook.
Gratitude is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, and it's great to see it so central in Stop Lying to Yourself. Do you remember any specific examples from the book that really show the power of gratitude?
One that really sticks out is how he talks about reframing a long commute. Instead of seeing it as a chore, he suggests using that time for personal growth, maybe listening to a podcast, an audiobook, or just enjoying some quiet time. It's about finding the good, even in situations we might usually think of as negative.
It's amazing how simply changing our perspective can completely change our experience. It's something we can all try to do in our daily lives, no matter what our situation is. Before we go on to the last part of our deep dive, we want to remind you that subscribing to the Book Nook podcast and leaving a review helps other people find the show and join in on these interesting conversations. We really appreciate your support. Now back to Stop Lying to Yourself. I think this last part is going to be really thought-provoking. So we're back and wrapping up our deep dive into Stop Lying to Yourself by Simon Gilham.
It's been a really interesting journey, exploring all these hard truths and the path to positive change.
Gilham covers so much in this book, from confronting self-deception to embracing accountability and prioritizing mental health. But I keep finding myself coming back to that idea of gratitude.
It is interesting how he kind of weaves gratitude throughout the whole book. It's not just like a quick mention, it's a powerful tool, for personal growth and change.
Yeah, he really emphasizes that shifting our focus from what we lack to what we already have can have like a really deep impact on our happiness and well-being. It's a pretty simple shift in perspective, but it can be so powerful.
One thing that really resonated with me was his point that gratitude is a practice. It's something we can work on every day.
Yeah.
It doesn't need any special skills or anything, just a conscious effort to appreciate the good things in our lives.
Yeah, he talks about noticing the small things, those everyday moments that we often miss. It's easy to get caught up in the negative. But when we actually try to focus on the positive, it can change our whole outlook.
Absolutely. It's like we're training our minds to see the good even when things are tough. The more we practice gratitude, the more we start to see how much we actually have.
So to wrap things up, what would you say is the main message of Stop Lying to Yourself?
I think it's about realizing that we have the power to create the life we want. It starts with being honest with ourselves and being willing to face those uncomfortable truths. Then it's about taking responsibility for our choices and understanding that we can always grow and change.
It's about accepting the whole journey, the ups and downs, and remembering that we're capable of so much more than we think. Stop lying to yourself really reminds us of that.
It's like a call to action, to be our true selves and to start building the life we deserve.
And don't forget, Stop Lying to Yourself comes out January 21st, 2025. Make sure to check the link in the episode description to get your copy.
And if you liked this deep dive, don't forget to subscribe to the Book Nook podcast and leave us a review. We love hearing from you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of Stop Lying to Yourself. Until next time, happy reading and keep those minds growing.
And remember, honesty is the best policy, even with ourselves.
That's all for this episode of the Book Nook podcast. Thanks for listening, and make sure to check out that link in the description to get your copy of the book.